I was sipping my morning coffee on a peaceful Saturday when I heard the most satisfying splash I've ever experienced in my 32 years of life. Looking through my kitchen window, I saw HOA President Vivian Thorne thrashing around in my pool, her 12-foot ladder floating beside her like a defeated metal serpent. But here's the kicker. That ladder had been positioned to peer directly into my backyard. The woman had literally been spying on me from above, and gravity had delivered the most poetic justice imaginable. Little did Vivian know, this was just the opening scene of a 3-month psychological warfare that would make Sun Tzu proud. And she definitely didn't know that the neighborhood security system she'd been trying to hack was designed by yours truly. Let me paint you a picture of Pine Valley Estates, my new home sweet home that I'd moved into just 6 months prior. This wasn't your average suburban neighborhood. Oh no. This was a master-planned community where every blade of grass had to be the exact same height, every mailbox painted the precise shade of heritage blue, and every resident expected to smile and wave like we were living in some dystopian Disney movie. I'd chosen this place specifically because I wanted peace and quiet after my divorce. My ex-wife had taken half of everything, including my faith in humanity. So, all I wanted was to come home, work on my freelance security consulting, and maybe grow some tomatoes without anyone bothering me about it. Vivian Thorne was the self-appointed queen of this suburban paradise. A 48-year-old retired corporate lawyer who'd turned running the Homeowners Association into a personal fiefdom. She ruled with an iron fist wrapped in a pastel pink velvet glove. Every morning at precisely 7 o'clock, she'd emerge from her corner lot mansion, dressed like she was heading to a board meeting, not walking her perfectly groomed golden retriever. I'd heard whispers from neighbors that crossing Vivian meant a life of petty violations, surprise inspections, and mysterious fines that appeared on your HOA bill like unwelcome house guests. The morning of the Great Pool incident, I was looking forward to sleeping in when Mother Nature and Karma decided to put on a show better than anything Netflix had to offer. The splash was followed by the most indignant sputtering I'd ever heard, like an angry cat that had fallen into a bathtub. I rushed outside. There was Vivian, hair plastered to her head, mascara running down her face like black tears, standing waist-deep in my pool, wearing what had clearly been a very expensive white pantsuit. She was holding what looked like a pair of binoculars in one hand, all while maintaining this expression like somehow this was all my fault. "Marcus," she called out, using my name with a snarl, as if I had personally sabotaged her amateur surveillance operation. "Your pool is a safety hazard. The community guidelines clearly state that all water features must be properly secured." The woman was trying to turn this into a violation against me while soaking wet and defeated by gravity. I waded in to help her out because, despite everything, I wasn't going to let someone drown in my backyard. The paperwork alone would be a nightmare. As I offered her my hand, I couldn't help but notice that her ladder had been positioned at the perfect angle to see over my 8-foot privacy fence. Not toward the supposed problem tree branch she'd later claimed was her reason for being up there, but directly into the space where I like to work on my laptop by the pool. "Thanks, Marcus," she said through gritted teeth as I helped her to the pool's edge. "I was just checking on that oak tree. HOA policy, you understand." That evening, after Vivian had squelched home in her waterlogged designer outfit, I received my first official communication from the Pine Valley Estates Homeowners Association. The email subject line read, "Notice of violation number 001. Immediate attention required." Opening it felt like unwrapping a present from someone who actively disliked me. The message informed me that I was in violation of 47 different community standards. They had everything from refuse receptacles positioned 6 inches outside designated placement zone to exterior paint color deviation from approved heritage blue specification number 247. As I scrolled through this laundry list of manufactured grievances, a cold realization washed over me. This wasn't about community standards or property values. This was personal. Vivian Thorne had just declared war, and she had no idea she'd picked a fight with someone who understood security systems better than she understood her own twisted need for control. Over the next 2 weeks, my mailbox became ground zero for bureaucratic terrorism. Day 2 brought a violation for my trash cans being improperly aligned. Day 3 was about my garden hose being visibly coiled in a non-regulation manner. By day 5, I received a citation for excessive lawn ornamentation because I had placed a single garden gnome near my tomato plants. The violations weren't just numerous, they were impossibly specific, requiring a level of obsessive observation that would make a surveillance state nervous. On day 7, I was cited for my porch light being 3 lumens brighter than community standard. 3 lumens. I started to wonder if Vivian had infrared vision or if she was just really bored. I decided to take a walk around the neighborhood and do a little investigating of my own. What I discovered was both enlightening and disturbing. Vivian had an entire network of volunteer community standards observers, basically neighbors who had been recruited to spy on each other and report any perceived violations. The most interesting conversation I had was with Derek Thompson, my next-door neighbor, who I found meticulously measuring the height of his grass with an actual ruler. "Dude, I've been dealing with this for 3 years," Derek whispered, glancing around nervously. "My wife thinks I'm losing my mind, but if I don't keep everything perfect, the fines just keep coming." He told me about families who had sold and moved away after Vivian had systematically worn them down. That night, I sat in my home office looking at my collection of violation notices. I realized something that made me smile for the first time in weeks. Vivian Thorne was playing a game she thought she understood, but she was about to learn that some games have rules you don't discover until it's too late to change your strategy. Monday morning brought violation number 23, and this one was different. This notice accused me of unauthorized modification of community security features because I'd been observed tampering with surveillance equipment. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a butter knife because Vivian had just revealed that she'd been monitoring the security cameras to spy on me. What she didn't know, what nobody in Pine Valley knew except the original developer who'd hired me, was that I had designed and installed every single piece of security equipment in this neighborhood. Let me take you back 18 months to explain how this beautiful irony came to be. The developer had approached my consulting firm with a unique request. "I don't want cameras on every corner making the place look like a prison, but I want to know if a butterfly sneezes in the wrong direction." The system I created was my masterpiece, a network of 47 strategically placed cameras hidden in fake rock landscaping features, artificial tree branches, and decorative street lights. The HOA board had administrative access to monitors for common areas, but individual property surveillance was protected by multiple layers of authorization. Unfortunately, nobody had anticipated Vivian Thorne. My investigation into Vivian's surveillance activities began that Monday night. Using my master access to the system, I started reviewing footage from the past 2 weeks, and what I discovered made my blood run cold. Vivian had somehow gotten unauthorized access to 12 different cameras and had been using them to spy on her neighbors. The footage I uncovered was disturbing. There she was recording Derek while he worked in his garden, capturing Mrs. Patterson hanging laundry, and even monitoring the Johnsons' Christmas decorations. But the most shocking footage showed Vivian herself late at night sneaking around neighbors' properties to plant evidence for future violations. I watched in amazement as she moved a garden gnome 3 inches to create a violation, repositioned someone's trash can, and even sprinkled bird seed near a patio to attract the undesirable wildlife she'd later cite. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place when I discovered that Vivian had been using the camera system not just for surveillance, but for blackmail. She'd collected compromising footage of neighbors and used it to maintain control over the HOA board and ensure compliance with her demands. Derek's nervous behavior suddenly made sense. Vivian had footage of him working in his garage after the 10 p.m. noise ordinance deadline. I realized that Karen had weaponized my security system and turned it into a tool of suburban tyranny. But every one of her nighttime, evidence-planting missions had been recorded in high definition from multiple angles. Every unauthorized access had been logged and timestamped. Every privacy violation had been documented with the kind of detail that would make a prosecutor weep with joy. Vivian Thorne thought she was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers, but she didn't realize that I had been watching her moves from the beginning. The woman who prided herself on knowing everything that happened in Pine Valley Estates had no idea that her entire campaign of harassment had been captured by the very system she thought she controlled. The hunter was about to become the hunted. The week following my public humiliation became the turning point that transformed me from victim to strategist. I spent the next 5 nights conducting the most thorough investigation of Vivian Thorne's reign of suburban terror. My deep dive into the security footage archives revealed a systematic destruction she'd inflicted on other residents over the years. Over the past 5 years, 7 families had been driven out of Pine Valley through Vivian's systematic campaign of violations and social isolation. The most shocking discovery wasn't about her harassment campaigns, but about how she'd been funding them. A careful analysis of HOA financial records cross-referenced with security footage and violation patterns revealed that Vivian had been embezzling from the Community Maintenance Fund to pay for her high-end surveillance equipment and legal threats. The woman had literally been using our money to fund our own harassment. The stage was set for a confrontation that Vivian couldn't possibly see coming. My plan had 3 phases. First, I needed to give Vivian enough rope to hang herself with. Second, I had to ensure that her inevitable overreach would be captured with undeniable evidence. And third, I needed to reveal her crimes to the community in a way that would completely discredit her authority. Phase 1 began with an announcement that I was upgrading the neighborhood's security system. I sent a carefully worded email to all residents, explaining the new features would provide enhanced monitoring of community standards compliance. I knew Vivian would see this as a direct threat to her power base. Within 24 hours, my access logs showed multiple unauthorized attempts to hack into the central control system from her home IP address. Phase 2 required me to become an actor worthy of an Oscar nomination. I began displaying visible signs of paranoia and frustration, making sure Vivian observed me checking my security cameras obsessively and muttering about system glitches loud enough for her to overhear during her spying sessions. To sell this performance, I started leaving my laptop open to fake diagnostic screens showing system errors and connectivity issues, knowing that Vivian would photograph these screens during her surveillance operations. The master stroke came when I planted false information in a document that I knew Vivian would find irresistible. I created a technical manual titled Pine Valley Security System Override Protocols and left it visible on my desk near a window I discovered she frequently photographed through. The manual detailed supposed vulnerabilities and contained instructions for accessing archived footage of sensitive community incidents that were supposedly stored in a hidden server in my garage. Vivian took the bait faster than a hungry fish spotting a worm. Within 48 hours of planting the fake manual, my garage sensors detected unauthorized entry at 3 o'clock in the morning. I watched from my command center as Vivian attempted to break into what she believed was a secret server containing blackmail material on other residents, but which was actually an elaborate decoy filled with fake files and a hidden camera recording her every move. She spent over an hour downloading what she thought were compromising security files, not realizing that she was actually downloading carefully crafted evidence of her own crimes while being filmed from 6 different angles. Phase 3 was where everything came together in a symphony of justice. I organized a community meeting under the pretense of demonstrating the new security features to residents, promising to show how the upgraded system would better protect their homes. Vivian volunteered to help present the security demonstration to the community. She had no idea that she was about to become the unwilling star of her own downfall. The meeting was held in the same community center where Vivian had orchestrated my public humiliation weeks earlier, but this time I controlled the narrative. I'd invited not just residents, but also representatives from the local police department, the city attorney's office, and a journalist from the regional newspaper. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, addressing the packed room with the same calm confidence Vivian had used against me. Tonight, you're going to see exactly how our community system works, and you're going to learn some very important things about privacy, safety, and the true meaning of community standards. I queued up the first video. Footage of Vivian breaking into my garage 3 nights earlier, captured in high definition from multiple angles that left no doubt about her identity or her illegal activities. The room fell dead silent as residents watched their HOA president committing breaking and entering, theft, and violation of privacy laws. But that was just the opening act. Over the next 30 minutes, I presented a comprehensive documentary of Vivian's reign of terror, including footage of her planting evidence in neighbors' yards, her unauthorized surveillance of private activities, her manipulation of HOA funds, and her systematic harassment campaigns against previous residents. Each revelation was met with gasps, angry murmurs, and increasingly hostile stares directed at Vivian, who had gone from confident predator to cornered prey in the span of half an hour. By the time I finished my presentation, Vivian was slumped in her chair like a deflated balloon, her face pale and her hands shaking as she realized that her empire of suburban control had crumbled beyond repair. The police representatives were taking detailed notes. The city attorney was discussing potential criminal charges. Vivian finally snapped. "This is an outrage," she shrieked, standing up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "He is the one who broke the rules. He is the danger." But no one was listening to her. The residents who had voted to fine me just weeks earlier were now demanding Vivian's immediate removal from the HOA board and discussing potential lawsuits for the violations of their privacy and the misuse of their dues. "Mrs. Thorne," the county board representative slowly took off his glasses. "I think you and I have a lot to discuss in a more official capacity." The legal consequences for Vivian were swift and comprehensive. The district attorney's office filed charges including breaking and entering, theft, invasion of privacy, embezzlement of HOA funds, and harassment. The security footage I'd compiled was like a greatest hits collection of criminal behavior. Vivian ultimately pleaded guilty to multiple felonies and was sentenced to 2 years in prison, 3 years of probation, and full restitution to the HOA and the families she'd harmed. The financial impact on Vivian was perhaps even more devastating than the criminal charges. She had to repay the $43,000 she'd embezzled from HOA funds, and she faced civil lawsuits from 7 former Pine Valley residents whose lives she'd systematically destroyed. The aftermath of the Great Exposure, as it came to be known in Pine Valley lore, unfolded with a satisfying inevitability. Vivian's removal from the HOA board was unanimously approved. Pine Valley began the healing process with Derek Thompson stepping up as interim HOA president, revising the community guidelines, and eliminating the most ridiculous restrictions. My own role in the community underwent a complete transformation. Instead of being viewed as a troublemaker, I became something of a local hero who had freed Pine Valley from its oppressor. Neighbors who had voted to fine me brought me casseroles and apology cards. The security system became a community asset rather than a tool of oppression. With proper oversight and transparent policies, the cameras provided genuine safety and peace of mind without violating privacy or enabling harassment. As for Karen herself, she tried to rebuild her life in a different state after serving her sentence. But the internet never forgets. Her story had become such a cautionary tale that new communities routinely searched for her name before considering board candidates. I smiled, remembering that sometimes the best defense against bullies is simply refusing to be bullied and having the tools to turn their weapons against them. Vivian had taught our entire community an important lesson: that community standards aren't about perfect lawns and identical mailboxes. They're about treating each other with respect, kindness, and the kind of consideration that makes a place feel like home rather than a prison. So, here's my final question for you. Do you think Marcus was right to lure Vivian into a felony trap, the fake server and break-in, to ensure her total legal removal, or was his use of technology to monitor private citizens an unethical act itself, even if done to stop a bigger crime? Drop your verdict below: strategic trap or unethical retaliation. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you believe that technology is the best tool for serving justice.